before we jump into it, just a few housekeeping items. We will be doing some Zoom polls. Those Zoom polls will pop up on your screen. And we're going to also have if you have questions, we're going to try to get to them if possible. We have a great run of show for folks tonight. But if you do have questions or you're having any tech issues at all, please use the Q&A chat function at the bottom of the screen. You can submit questions. You can also submit questions that we can try to follow up with you about. And yeah, really, really excited and looking forward to having everybody here tonight. This is a really meaningful night for me personally. My name is Savannah, for folks that don't know me. I was born and raised in Saskatchewan. I am from Stockholm, if you don't know it, a very small village near Esterhazy. Lived in Saskatoon for many, many years. My political home and organizing roots are very firmly planted in Saskatchewan and continue to be planted there. And I'm currently in Toronto. I'm Avi Lewis's campaign manager, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to host this event with you all tonight. It's great to see so many familiar names in the chat. And oh, hi, Dave. And hi, Crystal. Dak, okay, I'm not going to do that. That'll take forever, but just so you know, I'm so thrilled to be here, and absolutely grateful for the opportunity to see you folks on Zoom, and looking forward to some in-person stuff. Um, I also just want to open it up I'm situated in Toronto, which is in Treaty 13. There's folks calling in from all across Saskatchewan. So I really invite folks to put their names into the chat, introduce yourself, let us know where you're calling in from. And to just, acknowledge that we are all calling in from various communities on various treaty lands, and acknowledging land means a lot more than just naming the communities that we're calling in from, but also recognizing the harms of colonization. And I think particularly when we're having calls about electoral politics, it's really important to remember and name that electoral politics across this country have a lot of deep roots and historical contextualizations of harm for Indigenous communities. So while we invite folks to reflect on the possibility of what electoral politics can deliver to communities, we cannot have those conversations without recognizing the colonial legacy of violence and harm that have come from these institutions. So I just want to frame that and offer that as a reflection before we come into a conversation talking about solidarity between federal government and local communities across Saskatchewan. We are joined not just by Avi, but by two incredible speakers here tonight. I want to introduce renowned environmentalist and director of Saskatchewan Environmental Society and four-term NDP MLA Peter Prebble, as well as Manuela Valle-Castro, who's a Chilean immigrant with 25 years of experience as a researcher and educator and deep roots in community organizing and advocacy. So welcome to you both, and I'll give them a moment to introduce themselves in a second. But the first thing I want to do is ask if you're members. How many people here are members of the NDP? We're going to launch a poll just to ask. I'm one. So are you a member of the NDP? Do you have a membership to the federal party? Just answer this poll, let us know. And don't worry, if the answer is no, we have we got a link for you in the chat. So our supporters and volunteers are going to come into the chat and provide a link to sign up to become members. This event is part of a month-long mass organizing event that we're doing across the entire country, where we are signing up new members so they can vote for Avi. If you like what you hear tonight, please do consider getting do get a membership to vote for Avi. Only members to the party are able to cast votes in the federal leadership election that is coming up in March. And the deadline to get a membership is the 28th of this month. So TikTok, people, grab your memberships as soon as you possibly can. All right, so I'm just going to invite our speakers to talk a little bit about who they are, where they come from, and what their political aspirations and roots and thoughts and dreams are. I mean, not to put you on the spot too much, but I'm going to pass it over to you first, Manuela.
Okay, can you guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right. So thank you for having me here tonight. I'm always surprised when I get invited to NDP events because I have been very vocal in my criticisms of the NDP. So I know that the reason that I'm here is because some of the criticisms and frustrations that I have about the Saskatchewan NDP are part of why Avi is running and why some of the ways that he wants to reformulate and rebuild the party resonate with some of the criticisms that I have. And to start, I want to share that this invitation made a mistake that I told Bob and he accepted, and that's great because we have to be able to learn as we organize. Organizing is not easy. Let me tell you first that I am talking to you while I sit in front of this portrait, and this is Chilean President Salvador Allende, the first Democrat socialist of the world, who won an election with a very revolutionary program. And what was revolutionary was not that there were guns involved, because there weren't, but what was revolutionary was the commitment to the people and to, and then I also have who have a really great saying, which is you lead by listening, mandar obedeciendo. You lead by listening to the popular mandate. So I think that even though I've been very critical of I'm just going to be very blunt, like the white elitism of the NDP, and God bless our funders and forefathers at the NDP. But I mean, this is something that we still have to deal with and make sure that we recognize that, for example, for this session, we should have here some very more renowned or distinguished than me Indigenous leaders who have been working on environmental issues for a while. So I'm just going to give a shout out to Priscilla Settee, who has been working on food security, and Alex Wilson, who has been developing land-based education, and Sylvia McAdam, who is a legal scholar who is fighting deforestation up north. So I think that part of what I want to say today in this very dire moment that we're meeting, this moment of extreme concentration of wealth and power and devastation of our communities and over 2 years of genocide in Gaza that continues, not to mention all of a sudden we are realizing that we are in a police state in North America and that new and old imperial and colonial violence, it's still there, very raw and naked for our eyes to see. So I think that the way that we meet this moment requires organization and not marketing. Dump away your focus groups, experts on your marketing and pollsters. Dump them. We don't need marketing. We need organizing, which means not coming to the communities with preconceived solutions by experts or consultants or whoever, but activate and work with communities and listen to them to understand what works and what would bring a just transition to different communities. What would that look like? This is a moment that will require organization, not marketing, our courage and not fear, because this is scary. A white woman got shot in the face for being in allyship with Somali immigrants who were being kidnapped. Um, so we have to have a courage that we have to mean it. We have to really be honest with ourselves about whether this is what we want, because it will take our courage and it won't be easy. Organizing, I told Bob when I said should have invited an indigenous leader, and he said, "You're absolutely right. We won't do it again." And this is the thing: we have to. This is how we will build a broad base, by
Mm.
acknowledging when we make a mistake instead of like trying to PR it, right? And uh, yeah, really focus on being generous with others, instead of like, our own egos and I'm going to cancel you because you didn't invite them. No, no, right? Generosity, because we will need each other. So when I told Bob and he acknowledged the mistake, I said, listen, organizing is painfully hard, but we don't have an option right now because, again, the circumstances call for revolutionary, loving, radical actions based on generosity, courage, love, and yeah, commitment to our communities. And one of the things that has, do I still have a minute or am I? No. All right.
There'll be more time to talk. I think I would sign up for a solidarity session just to listen to you talk, though, Manuela. So you're always, we're so grateful and blessed that you're here. I'm going to give Peter a couple minutes for opening remarks, and then we're going to jump into some dialogue or no, Avi, you should have some time for opening remarks as well. I'll give you some too. Why not? Some opening remark time for Peter.
Hi, everyone. I'm Peter Prebble, and I had the privilege of serving in both Alan Blakeney's government and Roy Romano's government, and in Premier Lauren Calvert's cabinet. I'm pleased to be supporting Avi for this in this leadership campaign. Um, One of the reasons that I think it's important to support Avi is that he is the candidate who is making the issue of addressing climate change front and center in his campaign and addressing the question of a just transition as well. And we face a climate emergency on the planet. As some of you will know, every one of the last 10 years was among the 10 hottest on record in 175 years of record keeping. Extreme weather events are fivefold what they were 50 years ago. And we're experiencing this both in Canada and around the world. Worldwide, more than 20,000 children a day are being displaced as a result of extreme weather events. So we're in unprecedented territory. And of course, in Saskatchewan, we've just seen a wildfire season in 2025 that was unprecedented. We had more than 3 million hectares of forest burn. Back in 2023, we had an area of forest burn again that was 5 times the size of Prince Albert National Park, and so many northern communities forced to evacuate with all the hardship that comes with that. We've seen a record drought here in recent years, and in the last 4 years, there's been $7 billion spent in crop insurance payments to Saskatchewan farmers because of drought and other extreme weather conditions. And of course, we're seeing our water supply threatened over the long term by virtue of the fact that we're seeing unprecedented loss of glacial ice in the Rockies. In the last 3 years, we've lost 9% of the ice in the Western Rockies in both Canada and the United States. And we know that our rivers rely, especially in the late summer and early fall, on that glacial runoff. So we're facing a climate emergency on all kinds of fronts. Water security and food security in the world is very much at risk. And we need a leader in the New Democratic Party who will address these issues directly, who will make greenhouse gas emission reduction in Canada a top priority, and who will ensure a just transition and will use government as a vehicle for achieving these goals with an increased role for the public sector in Canada. So I'm pleased to be supporting Avi, and I look forward to his remarks this evening.
Thank you so much, Peter. Um, and yeah, before I bring Avi up, I know that's what I won't say too much, but I think that's something that for me has been really important in doing this work and in organizing this campaign has been being able to connect with folks like Peter who have a long and committed and dedicated history of leadership in the NDP, of involvement in EDAs, in positions of power, in running as candidates. And they understand that Avi is meeting the moment politically right now, and that this is the future that we look for. And I also have been meeting a lot of folks like Manuela who are saying, the political it's hard to trust the NDP sometimes. We've been talking about it on our campaign as NDP TSD. I think a lot of us on the call probably have it, and I know I do. But to see folks from both sides of organizing in community and movements and in organizing within the party come together. I think that that's something that Avi says that I really appreciate is no matter how dire things are, movement folks and community leaders absolutely cannot abdicate the political space. And so I believe that Avi is the person that can lead this party towards the type of NDP I could see myself staying within. And I just, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to invite and introduce the next leader of the federal NDP, Avi Lewis.
Savannah, thank you. You all know how blessed our campaign is to have Savannah in the chair as campaign manager. Saskatchewan's loss is our campaign's massive gain. So Sav, thank you so much for convening us. Like Manuela, I want to start by recognizing the Indigenous leaders and activists who have always defended these lands that we live on. The Indigenous right to self-determination is absolute, and it includes, of course, energy sovereignty, food security, and the free, prior, and informed consent to all industrial projects and other projects on traditional lands, which are all lands. And we need to I live in British Columbia. I'm here in the back office of a brewery in Nanaimo where a couple of hundred people are waiting in the room outside for a campaign event as soon as this one is done. And in BC, we are struggling with a BC NDP government that looks like it is second guessing as courts start to interpret BC's landmark commitment to the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, which was enshrined in law in our province of BC. And now property rights and owners, homeowners and landowners are starting to push back against court decisions that are reasonable, court decisions that don't threaten anyone's private property, but the government suddenly is in a political crisis or a political problem anyway around this issue. And we have to keep returning to first principles around the fundamental rights of Indigenous people on these lands. And when we talk about the climate emergency and when we talk about a Green New Deal and responses to it, Indigenous leadership is absolutely the most powerful force in the climate movement. Alongside the work of longstanding groups that have been fighting for climate action in Saskatchewan for such a long time, I can't tell you what an honor it is, not just to appear with Peter, but to receive his blessing, his political blessing, the Saskatchewan Environmental Society, where Peter has been for so long, folks at Climate Justice Sask, and all of the EDAs and activists at the grassroots of our party and everyone across the province who does this incredibly important work around climate activism. This is a tough moment. We are in an economic crisis and now a geopolitical crisis with the United States baldly taking over the oil industry of another country, kidnapping its head of state. And our Prime Minister, Mark Carney, who padded his brand and kind of greenwashed himself as a banker with all of these paper commitments from financial institutions, the global net zero alliance that he steered before, jettisoned. As soon as he became Prime Minister, in an election last spring, which was to protect us from the attacks from Donald Trump in the United States. One by one, climate policies have been thrown overboard in Canada. The effect on our greenhouse gas emissions is going to be devastating in a country where we are already ever increasing fossil fuel production in a way that the rest of the world has already started really definitively moving away from. If you look at the graph of Canada's emissions since 1990, they've gone up and barely stabilized. Every country in the G7, all of the European countries have gone down and down and down, and we are now a climate pariah in the G7 and in terms of other industrialized countries. Even the United States has lower emissions today than it had in 1990. Ours are significantly higher, and they refuse to come down because we keep expanding fossil fuel production in Canada. So we're at a point now where the climate framework that was developed under the Trudeau government, the tough decisions weren't made and the actions weren't taken, but at least a framework was put in place. And now that empty scaffolding has been swept away by Mark Carney. Of course, Pierre Poilievre would be, I think in this respect, would be identical. They couldn't have dismantled the empty framework of climate action in Canada any faster than the Carney Liberals did. And into this space comes a new understanding that we need a Canadian Green New Deal. Carney's attempts on every front to make the Canadian economy more independent are basically about throwing money at corporations to try to incentivize our way out of the housing crisis, to try to incentivize our way out of an industrial crisis around production in this country under the tariff regime. And we just can't do the same thing over and over again and hope for a different result. But rather than saying we need to put back the carbon tax, we need to put back the EV incentive, we need to put back these incremental measures, this is a time for clarity, for ambition, for speaking the truth about what would actually work, and for addressing the everyday emergency of the cost of living crisis, which is the number one issue for Canadians, of addressing that in a way that cuts household costs for food and shelter and transportation, communication, provides healthcare and the care economy while slashing emissions. We got to multitask now, people. We know how to do this. The world is already moving on and other countries are showing the way. Last year on planet Earth, $2.4 trillion was invested in renewable energy, and less than half that, just a little over $1 trillion in fossil fuels. In China, 5 years ago, 6% of vehicles being sold were electric vehicles. I don't think individual electric vehicles are going to solve the climate emergency. We need mass transit. We need an electric bus revolution in Canada. But in China, they set about under public ownership to really develop the EV industry and to dominate the world with it. 5 years ago, they were selling 6% of new vehicles were electric in China. Today, it's almost 60, a tenfold increase in 5 years when you use the tools of the nation state to actually make the change. So we need public ownership to lead. We need a green industrial strategy in Canada where the government invests billions of dollars to create hundreds of thousands of jobs to install the climate infrastructure that we need, from a national clean energy grid to rooftop and balcony solar, to the battery storage systems that will give us 24-hour reliable power, microgrids that will keep us safe during ever-increasing climate emergencies, and every kind of renewable power from tidal to geothermal and everything in between. We need good green jobs in communities because for fossil fuel-dependent provinces like Saskatchewan, workers and their families cannot transition into a catchphrase or a promise or a slogan. They need to transition into family supporting jobs, which is why we need a Canadian Green New Deal on an emergency basis to create these new industries so that those fossil fuel workers can see good unionized family supporting jobs to transition into. The jobs have to be waiting when the workers make the transition. We cannot ask them to sacrifice. They are not the ones who chose to double down on fossil fuels. It was the most profitable industry in human history, as Bill McKibben said, and it's capture of our federal and provincial governments. We need no worker left behind, and we are the only party that can pursue climate action on the scale that we need while taking care of workers and making the industry pay. We need power lines, not pipelines. We need a 21st century electrical grid from coast to coast to coast so that we can have interprovincial trade of clean energy while we use Canadian steel that we can't sell to the United States and create tens of thousands of unionized electrical jobs. We need a heat pump and in every home. We need them created under public ownership. We can train up a generation of installers and heat pump repair folks, solar powers and backup storage in every home, lowering electricity bills, even in cold, remote, rural areas, as Norway has proven, as other northern countries have proven, you can supplement heat pumps. They will do the majority of your home heating, and they will cool in the wildfire season. Something that not everybody knows about heat pumps, they recirculate air within a home. So when it's wildfire season and the smoke is everywhere, you shut all your windows, your heat pump gives you cool air, and the smoke does not come in. These are the solutions that we need to lower people's bills, to address the cost of living crisis, and to get off fossil fuels all at the same time. And finally, I'm going a little bit long, but I'll just say we need a youth climate core. We have a youth unemployment crisis in this country where young people are already in entry-level positions being displaced by artificial intelligence and where they don't have the hope of owning a home. After years of activism from wonderful, inspired young climate activists, we've had the federal government finally doing a small-scale pilot project in a youth climate corps. We should be employing tens of thousands of young workers directly by the government every single year to respond to the climate crisis through public works, disaster preparedness, infrastructure rebuilds, home retrofits, conservation, restoring watersheds. There is so much work to be done in this country. Any young person who wants a job should be able to work in the youth climate corps, and we can do it. Instead of funding militarism and the war machine, we can go to war for a healthier world that you and all the families and communities out there can afford. That's the world we're fighting for. That's why I'm running for leader of the NDP.
All right, that's all. That's it. Thank you. No, that was great. Thank you so much, Avi. And we're going to get into a few questions coming up next. We've got questions in the Q&A if we can get to them. But we also, the organizers of this, have collected some questions from folks across the province, and we're going to dig into some of those. But first, you must all be wondering, wow, this sounds great. How do I get my friends involved? Let us know. How many members can you sign up? So one of the things that we're doing on this campaign is big organizing. We are distributing organizing kits across the country to communities who are organizing their own friends, their own family members, and bringing people along to sign up as members so that we can all organize together in the communities that we come from. As we know, it's a huge country. Everywhere is different, and we want to be able to support folks in their communities to organize in ways that make sense for you. So let us know, how many members do you think you can sign up to the NDP to elect Avi as leader? We do have an outreach goal. So for any organizers across the country, any organizers across Saskatchewan, if you've got folks in your community and you're like, I think I could probably get 1, 3, 5, 10, 25, 100, set an organizing goal and join our national outreach team of folks that are reaching out to their own communities and inviting them to become members of the NDP, so that together we can win this thing and get to work. So the first thing that I want to talk about is a question that was received from by the organizers, and it's just about provincial relationships. The Sask Party government, I don't have to say this, but I will, has been known to be famously non-compliant with federal energy policies and climate initiatives, of course. So how should we approach provincial governments when it comes to these kinds of issues? What role can provinces like Saskatchewan play in a Green New Deal for our country? I'll go to you, Avi.
Well, I think provincial, I'll take a slightly different tack on this question because I know that Peter and Manuela will have thoughts on how provincial governments can respond. But I want to address something that comes up in all of these meetings, and that is the kind of federal NDP that we're fighting for on our campaign, and some tensions with some of the provincial sections and provincial parties. I know that the Saskatchewan NDP right now is not exactly aligned with the vision that I've just presented around a Green New Deal, a Canadian Green New Deal. I acknowledge that. And I just want to remind people that it is possible in the New Democratic Party to have democratic disagreements around specific policies and policy areas. In fact, it's vital. It's vital to our success as a party. The federal party is at an all-time low right now. We are humble about that. We're not happy with our performance in the last election. There is a huge amount of new energy in this leadership race because there's a path back for the federal party. I see the path back in every single province, and that includes your precious province of Saskatchewan, where our movement was born, where we once were bold and incredibly ambitious and broke the mold. And when people said that's not practical, that's not possible, Tommy and others fought for universal healthcare and so many other social advances. But everywhere in the country, the federal NDP will be stronger by being the party of climate action and by standing up and saying, honestly and frankly, we must get off fossil fuels as a society. It's a bad economic bet. Our oil industry is about to take a huge hit from the United States action in Venezuela. LNG projects are facing a glut. Prices at the pump will go up when we get hooked up to global markets for gas. There are very few arguments left for fossil fuel expansion, except those promoted by the fossil fuel industry and the governments that it has captured. So there are significant differences, but there is so much more in common. We are committed to working people, to unionized working class jobs. We are committed to universal public services, healthcare that finishes the dream of Tommy Douglas, to include eyes, teeth, mental health, and medicine, all part of your health, all part of our public single payer healthcare system when we win the rest of the deal. The Saskatchewan NDP is all in on that vision, as is every other provincial NDP. We agree on 90+% of the vision, and where we have differences, we have them respectfully. Sometimes in the federal party is not so present on the national stage when there's a provincial election going on. For instance, we respect each other's jurisdictions, but we can have these differences of opinion on the critical issues of our time. And this is how the federal party will return to relevance. Now, you are battling incredibly right-wing, regressive governments like yours in Saskatchewan. And Peter and Manuela, I would love to hear more from you about how you fight those governments right at the grassroots, particularly around climate action, which is always the first in the targets, in the sights of these right-wing governments, whether it's Danielle Smith, whether it's Scott Moe, whether it's Doug Ford. First thing Doug Ford did in Ontario, cancel all the renewable energy. And obviously others in the West have gone much further. So I'll pass it back to you guys for some thoughts on the provincial battles. Like a good host, I should say one of you. So since everybody's not waiting to go next, you go ahead, Peter, and Manuela's signaling too.
Sure. Well, let me first say that I think the first step needs to be to challenge the Saskatchewan government's legislation that at the provincial level that was passed 2 years ago that claims to give them exclusive jurisdiction over managing greenhouse gas emission policy in the electricity generation sector, the oil and gas sector, and the forestry sector. That legislation needs to be referred to the Supreme Court of Canada in the hopes that it'll be struck down and be found to be unconstitutional, because the Supreme Court in its ruling on carbon pricing clearly signaled that there's a significant role for the federal government in managing greenhouse gas policy. Secondly, I think, there's hopefully common ground to work with, even with the Saskatchewan party. We, of course, hope we'll have a provincial New Democratic Party as government in Saskatchewan when you're elected leader and are dealing with the provinces, Avi. But if it's a Saskatchewan party government, then we still need to look for common ground. And I think incentivizing renewable energy is potential common ground. We have 9% of our electricity generation coming from wind power in Saskatchewan right now, far, far less than 1% for solar. We need to take that up, a combination of wind and solar, up to more like 50%. The Germans are getting 47% of their electricity from wind and solar right now. Denmark is getting 65%. Australia is getting 75%. We know that in the spring, summer, and fall in Saskatchewan, we've got a tremendous solar resource and an excellent wind resource all year round, and we need to make maximum use of those. And investments in energy storage, investments in energy conservation and electricity efficiency. I think the federal government can do a lot to incentivize those kind of investments in Saskatchewan. I'll turn things over back to Savannah.
Sure. Great. And, speaking of kind of some of the things around renewable that Avi's been talking about is this electric bus revolution. And I do, I think we all remembered we used to have buses in Saskatchewan, and we don't. So it's really isolating. It's a really difficult place to get around. It's already difficult to get around in rural communities. And I think that really thinking about how to improve access between communities, how to improve access for medical needs for folks that live in rural areas. Sometimes you have a medical appointment in the city, you can't get to it. Thinking about, in particular, how can we adjust transportation policy to accommodate these rural and more remote communities who are often neglected in federal transportation planning in general.
Big time. Manuel, I see you shaking your head to that. That's, agreeing. Come on in the conversation, Manuela.
Well, really, what Savannah was saying, I wanted to emphasize that one of the frustrations that actually I have with the environmental movement is that they have not been able to connect how climate justice issues are not separate from like indigenous sovereignty issues, lack of democratic participation issues. So it's like these things are interconnected. We need to find a way to connect those back so that folks understand how it's in their best interest.
Yeah.
And when you were talking about creating a youth core, it made me think. I always quote something that Fidel Castro did on the first year of the Cuban Revolution, which is to invite all high school students to take a year off to go on literacy campaigns. And the youth wants an epic task. My own kids who are teenagers have so much climate anxiety that they had me write to the principal of their high school to complain about the use of AI that they're pushing.
Wow.
So they are facing a lot of anxiety, and we need to find ways that they can channel that anxiety and participate.
I really appreciate that, and connecting the dots among all these issues is essential. Savannah, you want us to take us into another field? I love the
Yeah,
chat, by the way. The chat's getting very exciting. Remember the STC? Yes, indeed. Electric
yeah,
rail
exactly.
across the country. New
Yeah,
Flyer bus plant in Winnipeg is an inspiring place. I don't know if folks saw a little
Avi,
bit.
I was just going to mention that the Saskatchewan NDP has run in every election since STC was phased out on restoring it. So
Yes.
there's lots of opportunity to work with the provincial NDP government in restoring the service and making it a greenhouse gas emission friendly service, this time electric buses, and making sure that it reaches every part of the province. So I think restoring STC is absolutely critical and a great opportunity to work together with a provincial NDP government.
I mean, it's a reminder of the era of market failure that we live in. It is never going to be a profitable proposition to reach every small and remote community in this vast land. When we had a national airline, when Air Canada was actually a national project, you had northern communities that didn't have the same kind of food prices because it's a public service to get food to the far north. And for smaller communities in the era past the railroads, when we don't have rail service like we used to 50 years ago, we need electric buses to reconnect this land. And if we force it to make profit, we'll get what we have right now. Greyhound decides to abandon the prairies, and bye-bye. There's just nothing. And we can't be relying on people having the resources to have private cars for every single thing. It's inefficient, it's unequal and unfair, and we can see that it puts people in danger. The Highway of Tears in British Columbia, there are highways of tears in every part of this land. And when we have electric buses run under public ownership, not only will we be creating all those jobs and reconnecting those communities, we'll be making people safe all along the way. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we've got a few more questions to get through, we're running out of time. We could all, darn it, we're going to do another one of these, you guys. I want to talk a little bit about the party itself, and I think just to sort of resurface what I commented on earlier is just like the mass, intergenerational and interrelational folks that we're seeing come out by membership to the NDP, often for the very first time in their entire lives because they feel hope again. So I want to talk a little bit about what the NDP might actually could actually look like. I think there's been a lot of criticism about centralizing power into the leader's office, about the inability of especially communities across in more rural areas, the inability to feel empowered to participate in the party and to make decisions and to influence the party and to have their voices heard and brought into a national stage. So I'm just curious, Avi, if you can speak a little bit about what your thinking is around how the party itself could be better utilized to meet the needs of local communities across this country.
I mean, when I was in Saskatoon just weeks ago for the provincial convention, it was a stirring reminder for me of how powerful the Democratic Socialist NDP roots are in Saskatchewan today. The riding associations at the provincial level are very organized, and there are lots of people who are working. The federal infrastructure has been abandoned. And I think that there's been too much concentration of power in the leader's office in the federal party. And the truth is, if we want to be honest, and the sort of the tone of our campaign is to speak the truth to people. I mean, we're up against it on too many fronts to prevaricate any longer. The truth is that too many decisions were made in the leader's office. Basically, every consequential decision in the last generation in the federal party has been made by a handful of people advising the leader. They're not accountable to members. They weren't hired by the members like the federal council. And we desperately need to redemocratize the party because that's how we come back and that's how we strengthen it. We have 343 riding associations across the country federally, and those could be 343 community organizing hubs where the EDAs, the riding associations, are set free, resourced, supported, encouraged, trained to get out there and organize, organize, organize the way we won things in the 30s and the 40s, in the 60s and the 70s. That's how we're going to do it. We're going to build back from the base. And that means setting the riding associations free to set local priorities, to support local struggles, to have political differences and to be able to debate them democratically and to build a much bigger mass movement, not replacing social movements and environmental NGOs and indigenous leadership and trade unions, working alongside the other progressive and left forces in society who are now in a battle against rising fascism. And we are at threat every single day from what's going on in the United States. And we have homegrown extreme right. You have an extreme right government, but you know what's even scarier are the people that they are empowering and encouraging outside the electoral space who are real extremists in our country, and some of whom in next door provinces want essentially to join with the United States. So we're both at threat from extreme right governments to the south, government singular, as well as extreme right forces within our own society. And the way to build a stronger progressive mass movement across the country is for the federal NDP to take its place as a democratic base building organization alongside other progressive forces in society and try to build what my grandfather David Lewis called in the 1940s a political instrument of the people. And that means democratizing the party, the federal council, the commissions, all of the arms of the party. And it was so striking, again, to be in Saskatoon and to see how strong the provincial party is and the democratic participation of so many members across big differences on different policy issues like nuclear, like fossil fuels, and other things that we can talk about. And yet the democratic participation of the base is incredibly strong. And that's what we need federally. And that's how we're going to come back and start winning again. And that's how the federal party can start supporting the provincial parties instead of the other way around. As the weaker partner, the federal party is not going to help the provincial parties. But when we come back and start winning, we can help the provincial parties by being strong across the country and being strong in Ottawa.
Thanks, Avi. It's that time of the night where I have to make a donation pitch. So why don't you bring me up, reduce Avi? We can skirt around the awkwardness of this the next couple of minutes here. As you all know, we are running a mass campaign across the entire country. It's a huge place. And speaking of public transportation, flights ain't cheap. I just, want to say too that our campaign is extremely proud of the fundraising that we've done. We have an incredibly large amount of small donors, and that is how we are powering this campaign. The bulk of our donations across this campaign have come from folks that are putting in, 5, 10, 25. Of course, 1775 is the max. If that is how deep your pocket is, we would love that too. But we really, we really recognize that electoral politics and party politics, especially in this country, we don't have access to donations from corporations. We don't have access to large donations and large funders. We're entirely funded by folks who donate whatever they can at any moment. So if you feel it within your capacity to stretch and make a donation tonight, Rachel just put a link into the chat. You can donate to our campaign to help us get to the communities that we want to get to, the communities that are expensive to fly to, like rural communities, like Saskatchewan. It costs more for me to fly home to visit my mom in Regina than it does for me to go to Cancun. So I haven't been home in years. Just kidding. I still go, but it's a tough call to make in the winter. I'll tell you that much for free. But what I won't tell you for free is anything else. So please donate with the link in the chat. Just kidding. I mean, we'll keep talking no matter whether you donate or not, but we do invite you to make a donation if it's within your capacity. And if it's not, we'd love to get your help and support by volunteering. We have organizing going on across the whole country. Um, and I want to just move into another question here because it's come up a few times. We talk about public options. We talk about that a lot in this campaign. We truly believe in the power of public options to make sure that we're providing what's needed across the country. We also really believe in the Green New Deal, and we also have seen a lot in the chat and coming up in the Q&A. The question nuclear. And right now, the only public option that's being put forward by the Saskatchewan government is deploying small modular reactors by the mid 2030s. A lot of people have been asking, what is Avi's position on small modular reactors and their deployment in Saskatchewan? And I know that Peter has a lot to say on this one too. So let's dig into it. I know that folks are eager to hear what we have to say about this. So what do you guys think? Take it away.
Sure. Well, I would say first that we should be very cautious about going the nuclear power route. It's a very expensive route, first of all, and you could build the proposed cost of a small modular nuclear reactor in Saskatchewan is $5 billion, and nuclear reactors have a long history of cost overruns, so the figure may very well be much larger. Then you've got all the costs that are associated with handling radioactive waste, costs associated with decommissioning the reactor because it's highly radioactive and needs to be cut up robotically. So it's a big ticket expense, and that money can gobble up all the resources that we should be putting into renewable energy. You could build 7 wind farms of 300 megawatts for the cost of that one 300 megawatt nuclear power station, and you could build 6 solar farms of 300 megawatts as well, and you could achieve 300 megawatts of electricity conservation at a third of the cost of going with nuclear power. And this is where we should be putting our money in my view. I also would just add that a small modular nuclear reactor, the technology is untested at this point. No one's built one. I'm very nervous about Saskatchewan signing up so quickly. And then, of course, you've got all the problems of you have to handle radioactive waste and dispose of it. You've got all the risks to groundwater as a result of dealing with that. You're also having to import uranium from the United States. The Saskatchewan Sask Party has misrepresented where the uranium will come from. They've been saying, well, we're going to use Saskatchewan uranium. No, in a small modular nuclear reactor, you're using enriched uranium, 20% enriched uranium-235, and that means you're dealing with a U.S. enrichment facility that, by the way, simultaneously manufactures enriched uranium for civilian and military uses at the same time. So I've got lots of hesitations about going this route. I think we're much better to focus on solar, wind, electricity efficiency, energy storage, cogeneration of electricity where you and geothermal, all of these other options are a lot more attractive. And so that's my pitch for why we shouldn't sign up for an SMR.
I mean, I think you've named a lot of my hesitations, Peter, with the facts and figures and receipts attached, and um, I do, I can't disagree with anything that you've said. I mean, these are fact-based arguments that you're making, especially around the cost and the length of time. There's never been a single nuclear project that I'm aware of anywhere on Earth that has come in on time and on budget. The ones in Ontario, and I think it's significant with this new small modular reactor technology um, that it is the Ford government in Ontario and the Moe government in Saskatchewan that are chasing after it the hardest. Two of the most corporate, corrupt governments in Canada's history. And there is a powerful nuclear industry that is having a renaissance right now. Nuclear power is very low or zero emissions. And when as a kid of the Cold War, growing up in the 70s, I was totally anti-nuclear everything for a very long time. At this point, given how we've kicked the can down the road and expanded fossil fuel production, I am no longer in favor of abruptly retiring existing nuclear generation. A province like Ontario has a lot of existing nuclear generation, but those plants are getting towards the end of their life, and they're tens of billions of dollars to extend them. The thing about nuclear that those of us who are inclined for much more for renewables need to remember is that nuclear energy jobs tend to be higher paying jobs, and it's a sector with more unionization. And there is, of course, the argument for baseload power. Now, the cost of battery storage for renewables is coming down exponentially, like the cost of solar came down 20 to 15 years ago, and that will be the solution very soon. But we have to acknowledge that wind and solar are way faster. They are way cheaper. As Bill McKibben says, the cheapest way to create energy on planet Earth today is to point a piece of glass at the sun. And transmission and storage are coming down to make it more reliable. But nuclear energy does have the benefit of more unionized jobs and more baseload power, which, as Peter points out, the nuclear plants have to keep going. You can't shut them down. So yes, you want baseload power, but you want power that you can control as different sources come on and offline, and as the market needs more and less. What we need to do, in my view, is to concentrate on making renewable energy a highly unionized sector, where the battery storage and the technology uses Canadian materials and Canadian labor to roll out renewables that are as reliable as nuclear power and as unionized as nuclear power. And the only way we will do that is under public ownership. That's why public ownership, whether it's a public option for groceries, whether it's free public transportation and an EV bus revolution, whether it's the public funding of the rest of our healthcare system, dental and mental, and the rest of the care sector, which is the nation building project. You want to create green jobs. Care work is climate work. Care work is low carbon climate green jobs. And those are jobs done mostly by women in health and education, a huge proportion of racialized women in long-term care and childcare. There are parts of the economy that are low carbon. They all have to be done under public ownership because none of them have a massive industrial lobby behind them. Why? Because the inputs are free. The sun and the wind are free forever. Nobody can make money on the energy source. This is why the fossil fuel industry, and by the way, the nuclear industry, have so much power. They're very profitable. They make money they have to burn their fuel and then get more of it. And along that supply chain, they make a ton of money and they build a ton of political power. We need to liberate our energy system from the grips of large corporations, and public ownership with renewables is, in my view, the way to do it.
Thank you both. Speaking of liberating, we need to liberate our attendees from this call in a couple of minutes. So I just want to make a final appeal really quickly. If you are not yet a member of the NDP, remember the only way that you can vote for the next leader, whether you're on board for Avi or you're still making up your mind, please become a member. The link to becoming a member is going to be in the chat in a second. If you are in a community and you'd like to join our mass organizing movement across this country, we have a lot of outreach, a national outreach committee as well. And that committee meets online. So if you're in a more remote community or you're in a rural community, you can start a chapter in your neighborhood. You can join our outreach calls. This Sunday, we have a full day outreach call with some incredible speakers. We're going all out for Avi on Sunday for the day. We are going to be joined by Anjali Appadore from BC, Nazia Alahi and Sid Ryan from the labor movement, Elle Jones, an incredible poet from the East Coast, Judy Rebeck, feminist leader and movement elder in our communities, Janelle Lapointe, who's an incredible Indigenous organizer that fights for climate justice across this country, Bill McKibben, Nima Machouf, Libby Davies, Joel Harden, and Gabor Mate. So if you would like to hear from them directly this Sunday, we are going to be doing a mass organizing day all day long. Please join that. Please join our community. And I don't know, Avi, would you like to say a couple things to close off?
I just great gratitude, Manuela. Thank you for starting us off with the vision of Allende. Peter, your expertise and your gentle wisdom is such an important lodestar for us all. Big love to Nettie Weeb, who I saw in the chat. I haven't seen in person in too many years. Our movement is grounded in the farms, in the land, and in the public sector of Saskatchewan. And we need to bring back the federal party right where it was born. And I believe that you folks can do it. This leadership campaign is not about me. It's about what we can do when we come together. We're going to get rid of the cult of the leader. We're going to get rid of the power of the leader's office, and we're going to put our trust and our power in each other to organize together. If you look at our campaign, we've had 4,400 donations from 400 communities across this land in like 3 months. We are touching people everywhere because we love and trust each other to do this work together. And this is the spirit that's going to bring democratic socialism back in Canada. It's been thrilling to be part of it with you tonight. I'm going to go talk to some people in the brewery here in Nanaimo, if that's okay.
Thank you all so much. And please reach out to us. And as always, reach out to each other. It's hard out there and this moment is tough. And the only thing that is worth doing is the things we do together. So thank you all for being here. Thanks to our speakers. Thanks to the folks that have been engaged in the chat and submitted questions. And a huge thanks to the organizers, the Saskatchewan chapter of the Lewis for Leader campaign. We're so blessed to have you all here and so grateful. Good night.
Have a great night, everyone. All the best.